Commander Elena Vasquez walked slowly through the quiet halls of the massive starship. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as she moved toward the bridge. The ship was called Prometheus Reborn, and it was the largest vessel in their fleet of 12 ships. These ships carried the last humans in the galaxy. Elena stopped at a large window and looked out into space. Stars filled the darkness like tiny diamonds. Somewhere ahead was home. Somewhere ahead was Earth. But Earth was not the green and blue world her ancestors had known. Earth was dead. She pressed her hand against the cool glass and closed her eyes. In her mind, she could see the old recordings. She could hear the screams. She could watch the fire fall from the sky. "Commander," a voice said behind her. Elena turned around. Lieutenant Marcus Chen stood there holding a data pad. His face looked tired. They all looked tired after traveling through space for so long. "The council is ready for you," Marcus said. "They want to review the files again." Elena nodded. "Tell them I will be there soon." Marcus walked away and Elena was alone again. She took a deep breath and continued to the bridge. The bridge was the heart of the ship. It was filled with screens and lights and the quiet hum of computers. 20 people worked at different stations, watching numbers and maps that showed their position in space. "On screen," Elena said as she sat in the captain's chair. The main screen came to life. It showed Earth as it had been 3,500 years ago. Green forests covered the land. Blue oceans reflected white clouds. Cities sparkled with lights in the night. It was beautiful. "Show me the attack," Elena said quietly. The image changed. Now the screen showed ships. Thousands of alien ships filled the space around Earth. They were shaped like sharp triangles and colored dark red. These were Zethkari ships. The Zethkari were the ones who destroyed everything. Elena had seen this recording many times, but it never got easier to watch. The alien ships moved into position around Earth. They pointed their weapons at the planet below. The weapons were massive. Each one could destroy an entire city. "Beginning bombardment," said a computer voice from the old recording. Beams of energy shot down from the alien ships. They hit Earth like hammers of fire. Mountains exploded. Oceans boiled and turned to steam. The atmosphere caught fire and burned. In just 6 hours, Earth died, but some humans escaped. 12 colony ships had been in space when the attack began. They carried 100,000 people. These ships ran as fast as they could. They flew into deep space while their homeworld burned behind them. Elena was born on one of these ships. So were her parents and grandparents. For 3,500 years, humans had lived in space. They moved from star to star, always running, always hiding. The Zethkari thought all humans were dead. They were wrong. "Show me the final transmission," Elena said. The screen changed again. Now it showed Admiral Sarah Morrison, the last military commander on Earth. She sat in an underground bunker while explosions shook the walls. Her face was dirty and her uniform was torn, but her eyes burned with anger. "To any humans who survived this day," Admiral Morrison said in the recording, "remember us. Remember what they took from us. Remember that Earth was ours for millions of years. We built cities and made art and loved each other. We reached for the stars and touched them. The Zethkari think they have won. They think they have erased us. But we are human. We survive, we adapt. We remember. And someday we will come home. Someday we will make them pay for what they did. This is Admiral Morrison, last guardian of Earth, signing off." The screen went dark. The bridge was silent. Elena stood up and walked to the tactical display. It showed their current position. They were 3 days away from the Sol system, 3 days away from Earth. After 3,500 years of running and hiding, they were finally going home. But they were not the same humans who had fled so long ago. Living in space had made them stronger, harder, smarter. Each generation learned from the last. They studied the old records of the Zethkari. They learned their language, their technology, their weaknesses. The 12 ships had become a fleet of 50 ships. The 100,000 survivors had become 2 million descendants. They had built weapons that could match anything the Zethkari had. They had trained soldiers who knew every detail of alien military tactics. They were ready. "Contact the other ships," Elena ordered. "Tell all captains to prepare for system entry." We go in dark and quiet. No active scans. No communications. We watch and we learn before we act. "Yes, Commander," said her communications officer. Elena walked to another screen that showed the fleet. 50 ships of different sizes and shapes. Some were warships built for fighting. Others carried supplies and equipment. The largest ships held the civilians, families who dreamed of seeing real soil and real sky for the first time. But Elena knew this would not be easy. Intelligence reports from their scouts suggested that Earth was not empty. The Zethkari had built colonies there. They were living on human graves, mining human bones, breathing human air. This made Elena's blood burn with rage. "Commander," said Marcus, "long-range sensors are picking up something unusual." Elena walked over to his station. "What is it?" "Energy signatures from Earth. Multiple sources. It looks like cities and orbital platforms. The Zethkari have been busy." Elena stared at the data. So the aliens had not just destroyed Earth and left it. They had claimed it. They had made it their own. This changed things. This made it personal. "How many ships do our scouts estimate?" she asked. "At least 200 in the system. Maybe more. And, Commander, there's something else. We're detecting signals from the planet's surface. Old signals. Human signals." Elena's heart stopped. "That's impossible. Nothing could have survived. The signals are weak and intermittent, but the encryption is definitely human. Pre-war human." Elena gripped the edge of the console. Could it be true? Could some humans have survived on Earth itself, hidden underground for 3,500 years while aliens walked above them? She thought of Admiral Morrison's final words. "We survive, we adapt. We remember." "Set course for Earth," Elena commanded. "Silent running. No emissions. We have ghosts to find and debts to collect." As the fleet moved toward their lost home, Elena felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. Not just for revenge, but for the possibility that Earth's children had never truly left. That somewhere in the ruins of the old world, the fire of humanity still burned. The Zethkari had made a mistake 3,500 years ago. They thought they had killed all humans. Soon they would learn how wrong they were. Soon they would discover that humans were very hard to kill. And when cornered, humans bit back. The stars ahead grew brighter as the fleet moved toward destiny. Behind them was 3,500 years of exile. Ahead was home, revenge, and the first chapter of humanity's return to the galaxy. Elena smiled. It was not a kind smile. "We're coming home," she whispered to the darkness. The human fleet drifted silently through the outer reaches of the Sol system. Elena stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Reborn, watching the tactical display with growing amazement and anger. Earth hung before them on the main screen, but it was not the dead rock they had expected to find. The planet was alive. Blue oceans reflected sunlight. White clouds swirled in the atmosphere. Green patches showed where forests had been replanted. But the cities floating in the upper atmosphere were not human cities. They were alien structures, dark and angular, like massive metal spiders hanging in the sky. "Report," Elena ordered, her voice tight with controlled fury. Lieutenant Marcus Chen looked up from his station. 73 orbital cities. Each one houses between 50,000 and 200,000 Zethkari. Total population estimate is 8 million aliens living above Earth's surface. And on the surface itself, mining operations, industrial complexes. They're strip mining the northern continents for rare metals. The areas where New York and London used to be are now open pit mines. Elena's hands clenched into fists. The aliens were not just living on Earth. They were eating it. They were destroying what little remained of human civilization and turning it into raw materials for their empire. "What about the signals Marcus detected?" Elena asked. "Still there, Commander. Weak but steady. They're coming from deep underground. At least 50 meters below the surface, maybe deeper. The signals use old Earth military encryption, the kind used in the last days of the war." Elena felt her heart racing. Could it really be true? After 3,500 years, could humans still be alive on Earth? "Launch a stealth probe," she ordered. "I want it to land near the strongest signal source. Use passive sensors only. Do not let the Zethkari detect it." "Yes, Commander." The probe launched from the Prometheus Reborn without any engine flare or energy signature that might alert the aliens. It would take 6 hours to reach Earth's surface. 6 hours to learn if they were truly alone, or if Earth still had human children hiding in her depths. Elena used those hours to study intelligence reports from their long-range scouts. The Zethkari had built their regional capital here. This was not just a colony world for them. This was the center of their power in this part of the galaxy. Hundreds of ships came and went from Earth's orbital docks every day. This was their most important world outside their home system. "Commander," called the communications officer. "The probe has landed. We're receiving data now." The main screen changed to show images from Earth's surface. The land was scarred and broken. Where forests once grew, there were now metal towers pumping chemicals into the ground. Where rivers once flowed, there were deep trenches filled with mining equipment. But the probe's underground sensors showed something amazing. Beneath the ruined surface was a network of tunnels and chambers. The tunnels stretched for hundreds of miles in all directions. They were clearly artificial, carved by human tools and lined with human materials. "My God," whispered Marcus, "there are entire cities down there." The probe's deeper scans revealed the truth. Far below the surface, hidden from alien sensors by layers of rock and metal, human beings still lived. They had survived the destruction of their world by going underground. They had built a secret civilization in Earth's depths. "We need to make contact," Elena said, but carefully. "If the Zethkari discover them after all this time—" "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer suddenly. "It's using the probe's frequency. Someone down there is talking to us. Put it on speaker." The bridge filled with static, then a voice emerged. It was human, speaking English, but with a strange accent that came from 3,500 years of isolation. "Unknown vessel, this is Atlas Defense Network. Identify yourself immediately or face defensive measures." Elena stepped forward. "Atlas Network, this is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Colonial Fleet. We are the descendants of the colony ships that escaped during the Zethkari attack. We have returned home." There was a long silence. Then the voice spoke again, and Elena could hear emotion in it now. "Colonial Fleet, the Exodus ships. You survived. You actually survived and came back. Yes, we survived. And we're here to take back what was stolen from us." "Who am I speaking to?" "This is Dr. James Harrison, current director of Atlas. Commander, you need to know something important. We never stopped fighting. We've been waiting for this day for 3,500 years. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" "I mean that when the Zethkari destroyed our world, some of us went deep. Very deep. We built cities in places they couldn't find us. We've been watching them, learning from them, planning for the day when help would arrive. We knew you would come back. We never stopped believing." The main screen changed to show new images. These came from hidden cameras throughout the underground network. Elena saw vast chambers filled with hydroponic farms. She saw factories producing weapons and equipment. She saw schools where human children learned about their heritage and their enemy. She saw training centers where soldiers practiced for a war that had lasted 35 centuries. "How many?" Elena asked quietly. 50,000 in the primary network under North America, another 30,000 in the European tunnels, 20,000 in the Asian deep sites. "We're not the same humans who fled to the stars, Commander. We're the ones who stayed and fought. We're the ones who never gave up." Elena stared at the images of underground humanity. These people looked different from the spaceborne humans. They were paler from living without sunlight. They were smaller from generations of life in cramped tunnels. But their eyes burned with a hatred that had been carefully maintained for thousands of years. "What do you need from us?" Elena asked. "Coordination. The Zethkari don't know we exist, but they will soon. We've been preparing for a final strike against them, but we needed ships. We needed orbital support. We needed someone who could hit them from space while we hit them from below." Elena looked around the bridge. Her officers were staring at the screens in amazement. They had come expecting to find a dead world that needed to be liberated. Instead, they had found allies who had never stopped fighting. "Dr. Harrison, what is your plan?" "We call it the Reckoning Protocol. For 3,500 years, we've been placing charges at key points throughout Earth's crust. We've been mapping every Zethkari facility, every weakness in their defenses. We've been developing weapons specifically designed to kill them. When we activate the protocol, every alien installation on Earth will be destroyed simultaneously." Elena felt her breath catch. "You've turned the entire planet into a weapon." "Yes, Commander. Earth became our fortress and our arsenal. The Zethkari thought they were living on our grave. They're actually standing on the biggest bomb in the galaxy." Elena looked at her tactical officer. "How long would it take to get our fleet into attack position?" 18 hours to achieve optimal deployment without alerting their sensors. Elena made her decision. "Dr. Harrison, we need 18 hours to prepare." "Can you wait that long?" "Commander, we've waited 3,500 years. We can wait 18 more hours. But I should warn you, Once we begin, there's no stopping it. Every Zethkari on or near Earth will die. This isn't just about liberation anymore. This is about justice, Elena nodded slowly. She understood. The humans of Earth had lived with their rage for 35 centuries. They had fed it and nurtured it and shaped it into a weapon. Now that weapon was ready to strike. 18 hours, Elena confirmed. Then we remind the galaxy why you never completely destroy humanity. You just make us angry. The transmission ended, but the images from underground Earth continued to flow. Elena watched human soldiers checking their weapons. She saw engineers making final adjustments to explosive charges. She saw families saying goodbye to each other because they knew that tomorrow would change everything. The Zethkari had made two mistakes. First, they thought they had killed all humans. Second, they chose to live on the world they had murdered. Soon they would pay for both mistakes. Elena turned to her crew. Send word to all ships, battle stations in 12 hours. We're going home, and we're not leaving any aliens alive to remember the experience. Earth's children were coming home at last. Deep beneath the ruins of what had once been Chicago, Sarah Chen crept through ventilation shafts that no Zethkari had ever seen. She was 24 years old, born in the deep tunnels and had never seen real sunlight, but she moved through the darkness like she was part of it. Above her, alien feet walked on metal floors. The Zethkari had built a processing center here, where they turned human artifacts into raw materials for their empire. Sarah's job was to make sure it stopped working. She paused at a junction in the ventilation system and checked her equipment. A small plasma cutter for getting through metal, electronic scramblers for disabling alien technology, and most important of all, a vial of liquid that looked like water but would eat through Zethkari computer systems like acid. Sarah had been doing this kind of work for 5 years. All underground humans started training when they turned 15. By 20, they were experts at moving unseen through alien facilities. The Zethkari never suspected that humans were living beneath their feet. She reached the main computer core and smiled. The aliens thought their security was perfect. They had sensors that could detect any known form of technology. But humans had learned to build things differently during their long exile underground. Their tools used principles that Zethkari science didn't understand. Sarah opened the access panel and began her work. She connected her scrambler to the alien computer and watched the green symbols on her screen. The device was learning the computer's language and finding ways to corrupt it. In 10 minutes, this entire facility would suffer a cascade failure that the aliens would blame on random equipment malfunction, but Sarah's work was just one small part of a much larger plan that had been building for 3,500 years across the planet. Other humans were moving through other alien facilities. They slipped through shadows and crawled through spaces too small for Zethkari bodies. They planted devices, stole information, and slowly undermined everything the aliens had built. In the orbital cities above Earth, Zethkari technicians were starting to notice problems. Equipment failed at random times. Computer systems developed mysterious errors. Supply shipments went missing. Security cameras showed empty corridors, but valuable materials still disappeared. Commander Vector of the Orbital Defense Platform was reviewing incident reports when his aide brought him another data pad. 17 more systems failures in the past day, the aide reported. Mining Complex 7, Processing Plant 12, and 3 separate storage facilities. Vector studied the reports with growing frustration. Any signs of sabotage? None, Commander. Our sensors detect no unauthorized life signs, no evidence of tampering. The equipment simply fails. Equipment doesn't just fail, Vector growled. Not this much equipment. Not this often. Something is causing this, but the Zethkari couldn't see their enemy. Humans had spent 35 centuries learning how to hide from alien sensors. They had developed materials that didn't register on scanning equipment. They had learned to move in patterns that confused motion detectors. They had become invisible. Sarah finished her work and began the careful journey back to the underground city. She moved through maintenance tunnels and forgotten passages, following routes that had been mapped and improved over thousands of years. The underground humans knew every pipe, every cable, every structural weakness in every Zethkari building on Earth. When she reached the deep city, Sarah reported to the operations center. This was a vast chamber carved from solid rock, filled with screens and computers that monitored alien activity across the planet. Dr. James Harrison stood at the center of it all, watching data streams from hundreds of human operatives. Package delivered, Sarah reported. Harrison nodded and marked another facility on his tactical display. Excellent work. How long until cascade failure? 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Harrison looked at the main screen, which showed a map of Earth with thousands of red dots marking alien installations. Over the past week, many of those dots had started blinking, indicating facilities that were experiencing random malfunctions. "Sir," called one of his technicians, "we're receiving priority transmission from the Colonial Fleet. Put it through." Commander Elena Vasquez appeared on the screen. She was aboard her flagship somewhere in the outer system, preparing for the final assault. "Dr. Harrison, our sensors are detecting increased activity in the alien orbital cities. They're starting to suspect something." Harrison nodded. "We expected this. Our people have been pushing harder lately, preparing for the reckoning protocol. The aliens know something is wrong, but they don't know what. How much longer can you maintain the illusion?" "Not long. Maybe 48 hours before they start conducting deep scans. If they do that, they might find some of our tunnel entrances." Elena leaned forward. "Then we accelerate the timeline. Can you be ready in 36 hours? Harrison looked around the operations center. His people had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. Their parents and grandparents had worked toward this day. Every human born in the deep cities had been raised with one purpose: to make the Zethkari pay for what they had done to Earth. "We can be ready in 24 hours, Harrison said. "But Elena, you need to understand something. Once we start the reckoning protocol, there's no going back. Every alien on this planet will die. Every orbital city will fall. This isn't liberation, this is extermination." Elena was quiet for a moment. "After what they did to our world, do they deserve anything else?" "I don't know. But I wanted you to understand what you're agreeing to." "I understand perfectly. How many humans are you estimating will be lost in the operation?" Harrison looked at his casualty projections. "Maybe 10% of our population. 3,000 people. But Elena, these people volunteered. Every single person in the deep cities knows they might die tomorrow, and they're all willing to do it." Sarah stepped forward. "Commander Vasquez, my great-grandmother was born on the surface. She saw the sky before the aliens came. She told stories about birds and rain and sunlight. Every human down here has stories like that. We've never seen the world our ancestors knew, but we remember it. We carry it inside us. Tomorrow we make sure our children can see the sky." Elena nodded slowly. 24 hours then. All Colonial Fleet ships will be in position. When you begin the protocol, we'll hit every alien ship in the system simultaneously." The transmission ended, and Harrison turned to address his operations center. "Alert all deep cities. Alert all operative teams. Alert every human on Earth. Tomorrow we end the longest war in human history. Tomorrow we take back our world." Alarms began sounding throughout the underground network. Not warning alarms, but the calls to battle that humans had been waiting to hear for 35 centuries. Sarah looked around at her fellow operatives. Many of them were her age, born in the tunnels, raised on stories of the surface world. Others were older, veterans of decades of secret warfare against the occupiers. All of them had the same look in their eyes, a mixture of fear, determination, and hope. "What happens after tomorrow?" asked one of the younger operatives. Sarah thought about that question. What did happen after tomorrow? After 3,500 years of living underground, of fighting a secret war, of planning for this single moment, what came next? "We learn how to live in the sunlight," she said finally. Above them, Zethkari technicians were struggling with more system failures. Security sensors were going offline. Communication arrays were developing static. Power grids were fluctuating. The aliens still didn't understand that they were surrounded by enemies. They still thought Earth belonged to them. They still believed they had wiped out humanity thousands of years ago. In less than 24 hours, they would learn how wrong they were. Harrison looked at the countdown timer on his screen. 23 hours and 47 minutes until the reckoning protocol began. 23 hours and 47 minutes until every human on Earth rose up at the same moment to reclaim their world. He thought about his ancestors who had fled to the tunnels as Earth burned above them. They had made a promise to their children. Someday humanity would return to the surface. Someday the sky would belong to humans again. Tomorrow that promise would be kept. The ghosts in the machine were about to become very, very real. The countdown reached 0 at exactly 12 hours Earth Standard Time. Dr. James Harrison stood in the Deep Operations Center beneath what had once been Chicago, his hand resting on a simple red button. Around him, 50,000 humans held their breath. Above them, 8 million Zethkari went about their daily lives, unaware that they were about to die. "All stations report ready," called his communications officer. Harrison looked at the main screen. It showed Commander Elena Vasquez aboard the Prometheus Reborn, positioned at the edge of the Sol system with the entire colonial fleet. 50 human warships waited for his signal. "Elena, are your people ready? All ships in position. Weapons charged. We'll hit their orbital defenses the moment you begin." Harrison nodded and turned to address his command center. "My friends, our ancestors made us a promise. They said that someday we would walk under an open sky again. They said that someday Earth would belong to humans again. Today we keep that promise." He pressed the button. Across Earth's surface, charges that had been placed over 35 centuries began to explode. Not randomly, but in a carefully planned sequence that would maximize damage to alien installations while protecting human settlements. The first explosions came from beneath the major Zethkari mining complexes in North America. Shaped charges detonated in perfect synchronization, collapsing tunnels and burying alien equipment under millions of tons of rock. Within seconds, the aliens lost their biggest source of rare metals. In Europe, similar explosions destroyed the main processing plants where Earth's stolen resources were refined and prepared for shipment to other Zethkari worlds. The aliens watched in horror as facilities worth billions of credits disappeared in clouds of dust and fire. But the surface explosions were just the beginning. Sarah, Chen and her team emerged from hidden tunnels directly beneath Zethkari Administrative Complex 7. They had spent 5 years learning every corridor, every security system, every weakness in this building. Now they moved through it like a pack of hunting wolves. The aliens never saw them coming. Humans appeared from ventilation shafts, from maintenance areas, from spaces the Zethkari had thought were too small for any intelligent being to use. They carried weapons designed specifically to kill their enemy. Plasma rifles that could punch through alien armor, explosive charges that could bring down entire buildings, and close combat weapons for when the killing became personal. Sarah's team reached the main command center in less than 3 minutes. The Zethkari guards tried to raise an alarm, but the human weapons were faster and more accurate. Within moments, the aliens controlling Earth's northern hemisphere were dead. Similar scenes played out across the planet. Human strike teams emerged from the underground network and seized control of key facilities. Aliens who had ruled Earth for thousands of years found themselves under attack by an enemy they thought they had exterminated long ago. In orbit above Earth, Commander Vector was trying to understand what was happening on the surface when his sensors detected something that made his blood freeze. "Sir, we have multiple contacts emerging from the asteroid belt. 50 ships, unknown configuration, heading directly for us." Vector stared at his tactical display. The unknown ships were moving fast and in perfect formation. Their energy signatures were unlike anything in the Zethkari database. Could they be pirates? Rebels from one of the outer colonies? No, sir. These ships are too advanced, too organized. This is a military fleet. The lead ship opened communications, and Vector found himself looking at a human face. He had seen humans before in historical records, but this one was different. This one looked at him with the cold hatred of someone who had waited a very long time for revenge. "Zethkari forces. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Colonial Fleet. You are occupying our world illegally. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Vector's mind reeled. Humans here? But that was impossible. Humans had been extinct for thousands of years. "This is Commander Vector of the Hegemony Defense Force. I don't know what species you are, but Earth is a Zethkari colony world. You have no authority here." Elena smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Earth has never been a Zethkari world. You are thieves living in a house built on human graves. Today we're evicting you." The colonial fleet opened fire. 50 human warships unleashed everything they had learned about warfare during 35 centuries of exile. Their weapons were designed using captured Zethkari technology, improved with human innovation, and powered by human rage. The alien orbital defenses were strong, but they had been built to repel external attacks. They were not designed to handle assault from below and above simultaneously. While Elena's fleet hammered them from space, Human saboteurs were destroying their power sources and control systems from within. Orbital City 12 was the first to fall. Its gravity generators failed when Sarah's people destroyed the main power core. The massive structure, home to 150,000 Zethkari, began to drift toward Earth's atmosphere. Emergency systems tried to compensate, but more explosions rocked the city as human strike teams completed their work. The city broke apart as it hit the upper atmosphere. Burning fragments streaked across the sky like falling stars, lighting up the surface of Earth with the fire of alien defeat. Vector watched in horror as city after city suffered the same fate. His communications were filled with desperate calls for help, reports of impossible attacks, and the screams of the dying. "How many humans are down there?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. They're everywhere. They're in our buildings, our tunnels, our secured facilities. It's like they've been hiding under our feet for thousands of years." That was exactly what they had been doing. In the Deep Operations Center, Harrison watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Every alien installation on Earth was either destroyed or under human control. The orbital cities were falling one by one. The Zethkari fleet was being torn apart by ships that fought with the fury of the dispossessed. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 alien facilities." Harrison's expression didn't change. "Ignore them." "Sir?" "You heard me. No surrender, no mercy, no survivors. They showed our ancestors no mercy when they burned our world. Today we return the favor." The battle raged for 6 hours. By the end, not a single Zethkari remained alive on Earth or in its orbital space. The colonial fleet had captured or destroyed every alien ship in the system. Human strike teams had eliminated every alien on the surface. Earth belonged to humanity again. But Harrison knew this was only the beginning. The Zethkari hegemony would send more ships when they learned what had happened here. They would send armies to reclaim their colony world. They would come expecting to find rebels and pirates. Instead, they would find 2 million humans who had spent 35 centuries preparing for war. They would find a world that had been turned into a fortress. They would find out that destroying humanity's home had been the biggest mistake in galactic history. Harrison opened a channel to the colonial fleet. "Commander Vasquez, Earth is secure. All alien forces have been eliminated." Elena appeared on the screen. Behind her, Harrison could see the bridge of her ship and the stars beyond. Soon humans would walk under those stars again. Soon human children would play in real sunlight. "Casualties?" Elena asked. "Less than we expected. 2,800 lost, mostly in the orbital assault teams. The Zethkari never had a chance to organize effective resistance." Elena nodded. "They underestimated us. They thought we were still the same humans they defeated 3,500 years ago. We're not," Harrison said simply. "We're what humans become when you give us time to plan and a reason to hate. We're what evolution produces when you try to make us extinct." The main screen in the operations center changed to show images from the surface. For the first time in 35 centuries, humans were walking under open sky. They were breathing unfiltered air. They were seeing the sun. Many of them fell to their knees and wept. Some had never seen anything larger than a tunnel ceiling. Others remembered stories their grandparents had told about the surface world. All of them understood that they were witnessing the rebirth of their species. Sarah Chen stood in the ruins of what had been Zethkari Administrative Complex 7. Around her, other humans were setting up communication equipment and weapon emplacements. They were turning the alien facility into a human military base. She looked up at the sky and saw something she had only heard about in stories. The sun, it was bright and warm and beautiful. Birds were flying overhead, descendants of the few Earth species that had survived the long alien occupation. "What do we do now?" asked one of her teammates. Sarah thought about that question. What did they do now? They had achieved their goal. They had reclaimed their world. They had avenged their ancestors, but she knew the war was far from over. The Zethkari hegemony controlled hundreds of worlds. They had fleets that could darken the sky. When they learned what had happened to Earth, they would come with everything they had. "Now we get ready for the real war," Sarah said. "This was just the opening battle. The Zethkari will come back, and when they do, we'll be waiting for them." She looked around at her fellow humans, surface dwellers and tunnel fighters, colonial fleet personnel and deep city engineers. 3 months after the Reckoning Protocol, Commander Elena Vasquez stood on what had once been the observation deck of Zethkari Orbital City Prime. The massive structure now served as humanity's command center, rebuilt with human technology and human purpose. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see Earth turning slowly below. Green patches were spreading across the continents where human engineers were restoring damaged ecosystems. The orbital cities that hadn't been destroyed were being converted into shipyards and defense platforms. But Elena's attention was focused on the tactical display that showed the edge of the Sol system. Long-range sensors had detected them 2 days ago, a Zethkari fleet approaching from deep space. Not the scattered colonial forces they had destroyed 3 months ago, but a proper military armada from the hegemony's core worlds. "Report," Elena ordered as Dr. James Harrison entered the command center. 467 ships, Harrison said grimly. Battle cruisers, destroyers, troop transports, and 3 dreadnoughts. They're not coming to negotiate. Elena studied the sensor data. The approaching fleet was massive, but it was also exactly what she had expected. Word of Earth's liberation had spread throughout Zethkari space, and the hegemony could not allow such a defeat to go unanswered. They were coming to make an example of the upstart humans who had dared to challenge their authority. How long until they reach us? 18 hours at their current speed. Elena, our combined fleets have maybe 200 ships. We're outnumbered more than 2 to 1. Elena nodded calmly. Numbers aren't everything. The Zethkari are used to fighting enemies who surrender when the odds look bad. They've never fought humans before. A communication alert sounded, and the main screen activated to show the bridge of a Zethkari command ship. The alien who appeared was elderly by their standards, with the elaborate markings that indicated high rank in the hegemony military. Human vessels. This is Fleet Admiral Zeknoth of the hegemony. 3rd Battle Fleet. You will surrender immediately and submit to judgment for the massacre of Zethkari. Civilians. Elena stepped forward so the alien could see her clearly. Admiral, this is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Defense Force. The only massacre here was committed by your people 3,500 years ago when you murdered billions of innocent humans. We're simply collecting an overdue debt. Zeknoth's mandibles clicked with anger. You dare compare the pacification of a primitive world to the slaughter of advanced beings? Humans are nothing but animals who learn to use tools. If we're just animals, Elena replied calmly, then you shouldn't have any trouble defeating us. But I notice you brought 400 ships to deal with our little animal problem. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Resist and we will make your species extinct properly this time. Elena smiled. Admiral, I have a counter-proposal. Withdraw from the Sol system immediately and we'll let half of your ships escape. Zeknoth's image flickered with disbelief. You're offering us terms? You have 200 ships against our 467. Yes, but there's something you need to understand about humans. We don't just fight with ships. We fight with everything we have, everything we are, and everything we can imagine. You're about to learn why it took you orbital bombardment to defeat us the first time. The transmission ended, and Elena turned to her tactical officer. Signal all human ships. Battle formation Omega. And send a message to the surface installations. Activate the planetary defense grid. Harrison looked confused. What planetary defense grid? Elena's smile became predatory. The one we've been building for the past 3 months. Did you really think we'd liberate Earth just to leave it defenseless? As the Zethkari fleet moved into the outer system, Earth's new defenses came online. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as civilian installations revealed their true nature. The orbital cities that the aliens thought were just repurposed colonies opened their hidden gun ports. And from the surface of Earth itself, massive railgun batteries emerged from concealment. The humans hadn't just been rebuilding their world, they had been turning it into the most heavily fortified planet in the galaxy. My God, whispered Harrison, as the tactical display updated to show Earth's true defensive capability. How did you build all of this so quickly? We didn't build it quickly, Elena explained. We've been building it for 3,500 years. Every tunnel your people dug, every chamber they carved, every system they installed, it was all part of the plan. Your ancestors didn't just hide from the Zethkari. They prepared for the day when we would come back and make our stand. The battle began when the Zethkari fleet reached the asteroid belt. Hidden weapons platforms activated throughout the belt, revealing that the asteroids themselves had been weaponized. Rocks that had been floating in space for billions of years, suddenly sprouted missile launchers and particle beam cannons. Admiral Zeknoth watched in growing horror as his advanced scouts were destroyed by enemies that shouldn't exist. How many weapons do they have? Unknown, sir. We're detecting new defensive positions throughout the system. It's like they've turned the entire solar system into a fortress. The Zethkari pressed forward, losing ships with every mile they traveled toward Earth. But they were experienced military professionals and they adapted quickly. They began using their superior numbers to overwhelm individual defensive positions. That was when Elena played her next card. Launch the mobile units as she ordered. From hidden bases throughout the outer system, sleek human ships emerged. These weren't the converted colony vessels that formed the bulk of the human fleet. These were pure warships built specifically for combat, incorporating 35 centuries of human military innovation. The new ships moved like nothing the Zethkari had ever seen. They were fast, agile, and seemed to anticipate alien tactics before they were implemented. They struck hard and faded away before the aliens could return fire effectively. Sarah Chen commanded one of these ships, a destroyer called Underground Thunder. She had trained for space combat in the deep cities, learning to fight in 3 dimensions while most of her enemies thought in terms of surface warfare. Target the command ship escorts, she ordered her crew. If we can isolate their admiral, we can force a surrender. Sarah, her tactical officer, called out, "We're receiving a priority message from Earth Command." Elena's voice filled the bridge. "All ships, new orders. The Zethkari admiral is requesting parley." Sarah frowned. The battle had been going well, but they were still outnumbered. If the aliens wanted to talk, it might be a trap. Back on Earth Command, Elena was facing the most difficult decision of the war. Admiral Zeknoth had opened communications again, and this time his tone was very different. "Commander Vasquez, I request an immediate ceasefire. We need to discuss terms." "What terms?" Elena asked. "My fleet is taking heavier casualties than anticipated. Your defenses are more extensive than our intelligence indicated. But you must realize that this is only one fleet. The hegemony has hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships. Even if you defeat us here, more will come." Elena had been expecting this moment. "What are you proposing?" "Withdrawal of hegemony forces from the Sol system in exchange for an end to human expansion. You keep Earth, we keep everything else." Elena looked around the command center. Harrison and her other advisors were listening intently. This was the moment that would define humanity's future in the galaxy. "That's not acceptable," Elena said finally. Zeknoth's mandibles clicked with frustration. "Then what do you want?" "Full reparations for the destruction of Earth. Technology transfers to help us rebuild our world. And a formal treaty recognizing human sovereignty over all our original colony worlds." "Impossible. The Hegemony Council would never agree to such terms." Elena's expression hardened. "Then the Hegemony Council is welcome to send more fleets. We'll destroy them the same way we're destroying yours. You cannot possibly believe you can defeat the entire hegemony. Admiral, 3 months ago you believed humans were extinct. Your intelligence has been wrong before." The battle resumed, but now both sides fought with different intensity. The Zethkari knew they were facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The humans fought with the knowledge that this victory would determine whether their species had a future among the stars. The turning point came when Sarah's ship managed to disable Admiral Zeknoth's flagship. The massive Zethkari dreadnought lost power and began drifting helplessly. Other human ships moved to surround it, their weapons trained on the command vessel. "Admiral," Elena called over the communication link, "your flagship is disabled and surrounded. Half of your fleet is destroyed or damaged. You have 2 choices. Surrender or watch the rest of your people die for nothing." Zeknoth was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of defeat. "What guarantee do I have that you will honor the terms of surrender?" "The same guarantee your people gave my ancestors when they burned our world," Elena replied. "None at all. But I'm willing to be more honorable than your people were." The Zethkari admiral made his decision. "I surrender my fleet to human forces. I request permission to negotiate terms for withdrawal from this system." Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. They had done it. Against impossible odds, humanity had not just